Well, welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for all of our speakers. Like I say, every time I do one of these, I end up feeling filled up in ways that I didn't expect to. I mean, even though I've done this, I don't know how many years, but I come and I get filled up and I get inspired, and I hope you feel the same. So, first question, for collaborative effect, how can schools support teachers showing up with greater vulnerability and humanity?
Grace. Allowing ourselves to be where we're at when we're at it, and to extend that to our coworkers, because we may not think that our kids listen to us, but they watch and listen to everything we say and do. And if we can have moments of grace as adults in spaces, that then helps transfer to the students that we serve.
Anyone else want to weigh in? It's all right. How can schools support teachers showing up with greater vulnerability and humanity?
Oh, I was about to do this. Now, see, this is why we shouldn't have sat together on this stage, because then I'm going to forget to be serious with Jason. But I was going to do this because I feel like I'm echoing something again. As you can see, I learned lots of things from Jason. But we cannot ask of others what we're not willing to offer ourselves. And so the way to request grace and vulnerability is to first offer it. And so we have to come out of our big titles and this role that we put on, because sometimes we put on the role as educator, and that doesn't match who we are when we're off the clock. So we have to step into our humanity and understand that what we request, we must first offer.
All right. Next question. Slightly different topic. Minneapolis educators. Thoughts on superintendent search?
Remember, it's recorded.
Is this thing on?
You don't have to answer if you don't want to.
You know what I'll say? I'll say that right now, I think our superintendent is doing a really great job of doing what we need for her to do. She's healing, she's reaching out, she's connecting, and that's what we need right now. And I'll leave it for people smarter than me to figure out what happens next.
Right.
So yes, to Rochelle. She's amazing. I was an EBD SLD licensed teacher, and she was a SPED director at the time. And she used to be at our school. We had 2 different schools, and she was there, and she was nice, and like it was different. And so now it's so funny because we're on the 3rd floor, and she's just so humble. But she. If you can humanize people, right, which we were talking about throughout this, and bringing up joy, she does that naturally. So I hope that we get her.
I'll just speak to kind of echo a theme that I'm hearing in the space. And again, the question wasn't who do you support for superintendent, but it's going to sound like it because recently we just had a moment where we had a new hire to Minneapolis Public Schools, and this new hire identifies as transgender. And we were at a all-staff gathering, and their name was put up on a board, and it wasn't the name that the person uses because the system in HR still doesn't have those capacities, right? So in unintentional ways, our systems can still harm and exclude people. And when I brought this to Superintendent Rochelle's attention, she immediately said, "I'm so sorry that happened. Would you mind, would it be okay if I reached out to this person and apologized?" And so when we talk about extending grace and we talk about vulnerability, it does come exactly to what you're saying. It's how we show up, and again, those little ripple effects and those fractals and those ways that we can influence our own sphere of control. So the fact that she didn't go, "Oh, that's too bad," and like walked on to her next big meeting, she said, "Oh, I see the value in you. I see the value in you. What can I do to make this right?" Yep.
I have to say one more thing because I realized that I was coming from a feeling space. one thing I felt like so something super important that happened recently with Rochelle is she told us how important our work was as an equity team, and she was like, your work is so important. And we don't often hear that. We get a lot of pushback. I know Candace, our boss, used to have to, what does Faiza say? Pull your chair up to the table. So just to hear our superintendent speak so highly of the work that we're doing, it means something. So thank you. Sorry.
Okay, well, there's one more. Oh. One more on the same vein. MPS educators' thoughts on school board candidates. You can pass. You can pass.
I mean, obviously, the folks up here aren't going to say, vote for, talk to us afterwards in that way. But do listen for the themes in all of our talks that resonated with you and stuck with you, and then listen to those school board candidates talk and see what syncs up. And then look at those people's records of following through, because we're obviously all here in Minnesota. We know that we can talk and learn the words really, really well to say what needs to be said to pass the test. Now, our actions, getting it from our head to our heart to our hands, sometimes looks a little bit different. So don't just listen to the words, but look for their actions as well. But, other than that, follow your compass.
All right. We've got a bunch more that just appeared in the basket. Thank you. Here's one. How can we better support our teachers? I think it's SEAs, principals who experience the impact of their students' trauma day after day. They are working hard.
They are working hard. Everyone's working hard. I think that this is a place where community leans in, right? It's not just an us and them. And the more we keep thinking about the school has the responsibility to solely do all these things, the harder it is for all of us. And I think that when we start thinking about ourselves in that more broad collective, I think that's where that support happens. Families matter, looping our families in, looping our partners in, looping everyone in, and as educators ourselves, knowing when we can tap out, when we need to tap out, when we need to take that moment, and then leaning in behind it and taking turns doing that. There's no easy way and there's no fast fix. It's just putting one foot in front of the other and knowing that no one's coming to save the day for this, you guys. There is no superhero with a cape that's going to make this all go away. It's us, day by day, together.
I would also briefly say, in more of a humanistic way, one way we can support them is by being very disrespectful to the hierarchy and believing them. We require so much labor, both physically and emotionally, from them. And then when they come to the table and they advocate and they share what they need for them and their students, they are often turned away. So the first thing we can do is listen to them, offer our ears, and also offer them our actions and our follow-up to support them in the work that they're doing on the front lines.
I second both what Nikkia and Jackie shared, and I think as somebody who's been in that position, I've started the district a long time ago as an SCA, as an AE, and I do know the physical and mental toll it takes to have that direct service in that way, especially when you're seen as an unlicensed person. Like, I just want to name some things that I think that in an effort to support, we also have to be honest, and we're naming that they don't have the same level of education or certification as teachers do, and most times those are our staff of color. And so I simply just want to name that to say that, along with what I shared today around humanity, that I think is also something that's supportive. When I was in SEA, I was also dealing with some things, and I remember the teacher saying to me that I worked with, she never let me say I work for her. She told me that I work with her. And she said every single time I would feel guilty about having to miss school, she would say, Faiza, family comes first. And for her to see, and that's true, right? Like we all know that's true, but I felt like a cog in a system, and she didn't treat me that way. And so I think having leadership and holding leadership accountable to making sure that our staff who do have that direct service, sometimes with our most vulnerable students and our staff of color, need advocates. And they don't always need advocates that look like Nikkia, Jewell, and I. And so one way that you all can support those folks is if you are a white-bodied person and you have some leadership or a license to also be their advocate and also be their partner in humanity. And if that means bringing them breakfast, which I do now for some folks because a donut's like 50 cents or whatever. And if that means asking how you're doing and taking over their spot so they can actually get their break, I think these are all ways in which we can support those staff.
This is a somewhat related question. How can admin give teachers the space to heal while also healing students?
I think the first thing is modeling that vulnerability. Jewell talked so well about what Rochelle is doing as a leader right now, and I think that's one of the things that has to happen in all of our spaces. One of the things that I think was a gap previously was the ability to show emotion and show empathy and make it okay to do that ourselves. So that's a start.
Yes. Where did it go? Yes. How can admin give teachers the space to heal while also healing students?
I've got some things to say. We work in a system that was created and designed for people who look like me, to benefit people who look like me. And the farther away from me you get, the more work you get, the less recognition that you get, and the side eye you get. And so how our administrators and our system as a whole can right the wrong that we have in our system, because people say our system's broken. I disagree. It's doing exactly what it was designed to do. Graduate folks who look like me. And we talk about marginalized populations. We're not talking about me. And so how we can honor those that are hurting is speak it, is say it. Speak out the truth. That we have educators that are hurting. Let's name it. Let's quit pretending. That's what we need to do. And it's people who look like me who need to step out of my comfort zone, my cushiness. Clarify that. Yeah.
Why did everybody get the joke?
And we need to speak truth to these systems of power. If we don't, we are complicit. And I'm talking to the folks who look like me in this space. We are complicit. We are part of the problem. So we need to use our voice and our position to speak truth and make change. Period.
Sorry. Can you ask the question one more time?
Yep.
Only because I have the answer, but then the Kush comment came. Right. And it's legal in Minnesota.
I'll read the question again, and one that's kind of related to
You're adding more.
I'm going to add more, yeah. So the original question is, how can admin give teachers the space to heal while also healing students?
Yes.
And then the next question that was related was, how do you bridge the gap between the teachers and admin, parentheses union, to get the best for all students with the history of the strike and trauma?
Yikes. Oh, we were on strike last year, by the way.
Right.
But that's like, so I really wanted, when you asked that question, I immediately just went to, oh my gosh, this is what we did for a really long time when we were teachers. We tried to heal ourselves and the students. That doesn't work, and that's not our job. And so that's where we get messed up. We have to heal ourselves. I think Nikkia said it best, right? We're working on healing ourselves. And then we're not the practitioners of healing. That the teacher's job is to educate our babies so that we can get what we need to get them so that they can go to college and be successful humans. We're not the healers. That's not our charge. We can assist them in finding resources. We can advocate for social workers in schools so that they can help get those resources. And we can have the admin make sure that they're budgeting for things like mental health supports, EMSS, helping to retain teachers of color, things like that. But I don't think teachers charge, and then this is where we get burnt out. This is where we lose it, is when we think that we're both supposed to teach academics, love our babies, and heal them. No, we need a village, baby.
I agree, and I agree with the burnout piece, because that is really trying, depending on where you work, especially if you work in a certain community where you have students that have those struggles in a very homogenous way. But I also think that, yes, we are not the healers. We are not the diagnosers. We're not the people to say if somebody has ADHD or whatever. But we can structure our day and our time intentionally. So even though we are not the carriers and the keepers of the healing, we can be the facilitators of healing. We can be the reinforcers of healing. And so one thing that I just think could be added to this conversation is just around, do you have time and space to talk to students? Do they have time and space to talk to you? That can look like morning meeting. In my classroom, that looked like having a notebook in the back of the room that students could anonymously write in, and I would make sure I was checking it frequently enough and rip out the pages and keep them with me. That means teaching kids how to talk to you even when they're feeling scared, and teaching coping mechanisms about how you can focus even when you feel like you can't focus. So even though we're not the keepers of that, our work does have some intersection in that. And I think the goal is, and the struggle is for a lot of teachers, including myself, is like, where's that line? But I think what Jewell brought up is that it's a good reminder that we are not the keepers of that. We are not psychologists. We are not counselors. We're not any of those things. But we can be intentional and purposeful and still carry on that humanity of how we structure a day when we're thinking of where our students are developmentally and cognitively.
Not to belabor this response, but when Faiza said the word intention, I was like, well, now I have to say something, because that's what I was thinking. But that was my immediate response. And I was thinking of like admin specifically. If the question is, how does admin make space for healing? It's being intentional about the things that you are asking of your staff. Too often we have things that we like want to check off a box, but we really have no stake in actually doing the thing that's on the paper. So really being honest about yourself, or with yourself, about whatever you're asking. And also to what they were just saying, like, when I also heard the question, if you saw me go like, it's because I didn't really understand the idea that these things can't happen simultaneously. And Jewell did really say it amazingly. I cannot be responsible for anyone else's healing. It will cause resentment. And this is not just in a classroom, because remember I said we just be immediate and personal and local. And my husband is gone, so I can say I can't be responsible for his healing. I meant my, and so when I learned that truth, and just like he can't be responsible for mine, but we can walk with each other, and we have responsible for our own responsibility for our own healing. That's when the collective healing that I was referencing earlier occurs, when we make space. So it's never to say I am here to heal you, because then I think that I'm some savior that's coming to save the day, and then that causes harm.
All right. We have a couple questions that were kind of on the same vein, and I think that we have some good, juicy answers that we just got now. So I'm going to end with this one. Do you practice joy or choose joy? Do you practice it with students? If so, what does it look like?
I think we should all have to answer.
I think so.
Yeah.
All right. I'm choking out here. So, practice or choose joy? Both, right? Both, because I don't know. I come from some dysfunction. It's not a normal state of being for me, so I have to practice it. But then it's also a choice. It's a choice to practice it. It's a choice to extend it to others, to give that grace, extend that kindness.
I agree. I think that practicing joy and choosing joy are, again, synonymous in my brain. Something I think about that some of us have explored on our team at work is the concept of radical joy. And so it looks like I feel joy right now because I'm amongst people that I care about, doing things that I love, and talking about things that bring me fire and passion. But as I mentioned in my story earlier, when I had what are they called? Tubes coming out of the side of my body, and I had to count how many milliliters of blood were pumping to make sure I didn't have to go back to the hospital. That's when I actually had to choose radical joy. And I was going to show a picture of me putting on my red lip, because I was like, you know what? The only way that I'm going to be able to see the light at the end of this tunnel is if I remind myself that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I put on things to make me remember like who I felt I wanted to be or go back to. I don't think that's ever a thing anymore because forever changed, right? But I also had to be intentional about remembering that joy can be our weapon when we are going through times of turmoil or trials. Like, joy is not just this happy-go-lucky thing. It's the thing that keeps us alive. It's the thing, especially as educators, that keep us going. So joy is not just like, you know, I'm going to choose joy today by wearing yellow, which I did, but also it's the way that we choose to live. And it's the way that we choose to be in community with others.
Thank you. As you were talking, I was reminded in this conversation of joy, because again, this is the other thing that happens. Once we have this word that enters our vernacular, we weaponize it, and so I want to make sure that we don't weaponize joy. Hey, this school is joyful. Why don't you enjoy it? You know, or however it plays out. I don't know. But yeah, be happy. Anyway, so I don't want to weaponize joy, and I want to cause caution to that. In the word practice, I practice gratitude to be able to access joy. As my grandfather, as you had said, walked on, and in his last few days I was spending with him, he was speaking Norwegian. I hadn't heard him ever speak Norwegian before. And he said "Manga tak," which means many thanks. Prior to that moment, I also had never had a tattoo before. But once he spoke those words in that moment, I was like, I'm putting this right on my heart, which is a reminder of gratitude and to say many thanks. I'm going to quote a little bit, paraphrase Brene Brown a little bit, because I'm an educator, and who hasn't paraphrased Brene Brown at one point or another? So she mentions a link, and this is a conversation that she had with DeRay McKesson and herself, and it looked at the link between trauma, vulnerability, and joy. So in an educational environment, and to be able to learn, you have to be vulnerable, right? If you, where am I going with that? You have to be vulnerable. And if you've experienced personal, interpersonal, generational trauma, you've probably built up some walls to not be vulnerable, right? Which then also blocks your access to joy. Joy is a very vulnerable feeling. Once you have something in front of you, this is the most precious, most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life. What's going to happen to it, right? And so in practicing gratitude, it allows us to stay present in joy longer. And so that's what I practice so I can access joy.
This morning, I got out of bed with my own 2 feet. I looked around me and I had a beautiful family. I had food in my belly, a roof over my head, a car to drive to work. I have a job. I have moderately good health. And those are all moments of joy because, folks, there are people in our community that have none of that. There is always room for joy in Matthew Myrold's life. I am blessed. And the fact that we are all here tonight, as a collective, we are blessed.
Man, this is where the collective, where you don't have to say anything because they did such a great job. But I will say, though, that choosing joy, I have to say that I have to intentionally choose joy every day. Because if I wake up and choose what my body's programmed to do, it's not always joyful. I'm not saying that it doesn't come sometimes naturally, but I have to choose it. Because when I wake up, I have to go wake up another human. And I really need her to wake up and choose joy. So, and it's not working every day. But there's something there, right? And so, yes, that's such a beautiful, loaded question that you could like write a book on or continuously have conversations about, because joy it's a big word and it can be weaponized. But yes, I have to choose joy first so that then I can practice it.
Yeah, it sucks to go last. Like you talked about Brene Brown, Jason, but okay. I agree with what my colleagues said. I agree with the both. I agree with the gratitude and the vulnerability. I agree that we're blessed, and I agree that we have to make a choice sometimes, even when we don't feel like it. I think for me, as life goes on, like I think it ebbs and flows sometimes, but I do agree that sometimes it's easier to choose joy than others. And I think for me, as I was doing my own self-work and my own healing, what really helps to fuel my joy is the gratitude piece, is the affirmations piece, because there was a time where like I would have never thought to do anything like that ever in life. And so I consider that growth, and I'm grateful for that. And to Jewel's point, I have another human that depends on me, and I don't want her to have to weigh out what she chooses to do. I want it to be innate for her. And so for me, yes, there are times where I choose joy, but now it's such a practice to be grateful. And it also helps to have a supportive community. Kind of to my point earlier about when you can't muster those moments, I'm really blessed to have a partner and a family that will be like, Faiza, I need you to be quiet because this is what you have that's so amazing. So I think that's also something really important.
Thank you, everyone. I'm just going to stay down here. Thank you, everyone, for your great questions. That was a good last one. Good job, me. And thank you for everyone who wrote a question, too. Thank you to our incredible presenters. Faiza Bharmal, Jason Bucklin, Nikkia Hines, Matthew Myrold, Jewell Reichenberger went away, and Jackie Vertigan. And thank you to all of us for joining us this evening. You've been a great audience. Save the date for the next EDTalks. It is going to be Monday, December 5th, and will feature speakers Timothy Brown and Amy Young. More information to come, so keep an eye out on social media and your email inboxes. We'll send links to tonight's video recordings and great resources suggested by these folks up here, these really knowledgeable folks. Our goal is for ongoing learning and education. So we hope you check out the resources, connect with other folks, get involved in other education-related issues.